Hope you're having a good day today. Thanks for joining me for another portion of our daily praise. We are going to be looking at the account that leads to Daniel being in the lion's den today. Our hymn is the hymn, I Will Pray.
Father, in the morning unto thee I pray, let thy loving kindness keep me through this day. I will pray, ever will I pray. Morning, noon, and evening, unto thee I pray.
All right, let's look at our passage. In Daniel chapter 6, let me make it a little larger. Daniel 6, it pleased Darius. Yesterday we spoke about Belshazzar, spoke about him and how he lost the kingdom that night. Darius comes to power, came to power there. Pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 satraps to be over the whole kingdom, over these 3 governors, of whom Daniel is one. So it looks like he appreciates Daniel, unlike Belshazzar. But we know what's going to happen. As Daniel distinguishes himself above the others, above the governors and satraps, that those individuals, they try to find some charge against him. And so they once again, and we've kind of seen this sort of language before, but anyway, King Darius lived forever, and all the governors of the kingdom, the administrators, the satraps, counselors, and advisors, all those, they have consulted together to establish a royal statute and make a firm decree that whoever petitions any god or man for 30 days, except you, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions. And so King Darius signs the written decree. And Daniel knew about it, knew what was in the works. And let's see what happens. When Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went home, and in his upper room, with his windows open toward Jerusalem, he knelt down on his knees 3 times that day and prayed and gave thanks before his God, as was his custom since early days. Then these men assembled and found Daniel praying and making supplication before his God. And they went before the king, and of course, what they've done is they've trapped Daniel, and they've manipulated the king. And so they come before the king and they say, "Oh, didn't you sign this decree? And the laws, according to the law of Medes and Persians, you can't alter it." And they say, "Daniel, one of the captives from Judah, he does not show due regard for you, O king, or for the decree that you have signed." And when the king heard these words, he was greatly displeased with himself, and set his heart on Daniel to deliver him, and he labored till the going down of the sun to deliver him. Then these men approached the king and said to the king, "Know, O king, that it is the law of the Medes and the Persians that no decree or statute which the king establishes may be changed." So the king gave the command, and they brought Daniel and cast him into the den of lions. But the king spoke, saying to Daniel, "Your God, whom you serve continually, he will deliver you." So a stone was brought and laid it on the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet ring, with the signets of his lords, that the purpose concerning Daniel might not be changed. Excuse me. So what things might we notice? I'd like to look in verse 10. And just from that verse, I appreciate, and we should appreciate Daniel, because he's not a defeatist. He's not going to. He didn't go home and wallow. He didn't go home and say, "Poor miserable me." Do you remember who is that? Is that Jezebel's husband, Ahab? Ahab, when he doesn't get what he wants, and he goes and he lays down with his face to the wall. And Jezebel comes in and says, "Oh, you poor thing, I'll get it for you, don't worry about it." And Naboth is soon dead. Appreciate Daniel, because he's not like that. He's not a defeatist, if that's the right word that I'm looking for. What he does is he opens up his windows to Jerusalem. With his windows open toward Jerusalem, he knelt down on his knees 3 times that day. I will pray. You might consider, what was the state of Jerusalem at that time? What was the state of the temple at that time? What Daniel was doing was he was recognizing God and the house of God. And whether the temple stood or not, it was the city of God, and it was the house of God. And he opens up his windows towards Jerusalem. We should appreciate the house of God. We should appreciate, especially on this side of the cross, we should appreciate the house of God, the dwelling place, as it is. And we are a part of it, the living stones. I will pray. Of course, we could also speak about Daniel and his habits. Prayed and he gave thanks before his God, as was his custom since early days. He's going to say later on, he's going to pray for forgiveness. But we see what his custom was since he was a young fella. And this was his custom. I will pray. His habits, his godly habits, did not change one bit when that decree was made. He did what he had done before. It's time to go pray. And that's what he did. I will pray. Back in the hymn, let me back up. In the morning unto thee I pray, keep me through this day. Let me look at the rest of the verses. At the busy noontide, pressed with work and care, then I'll wait with Jesus till he hears my prayer. When the evening shadows chase away the light, Father, then I'll pray thee, bless thy child tonight. Thus, in life's glad morning, in its bright noonday, in the shadowy evening, ever will I pray. And that's Daniel. I will pray. There's probably other things we could mention. He went home and did this. He wasn't trying to make a big show. The Lord talks about, in giving us instructions about prayer, talks about how the Pharisees prayed to be seen by men. That's not Daniel. He wasn't hiding. He wasn't hiding, but he also was not showing off. He knelt down, it says. We could talk about that as well. He knelt down on his knees 3 times that day. And we could also talk about he gave thanks. It'd be pretty easy to say, well, what is there to be thankful for? Wouldn't it? There's always something to be thankful for. We can be thankful that Jesus is at the right hand of God. And whether we pay for it with our lives or not, that does not change where he is, and that does not change where we will be. And so we give thanks. All of these things. Daniel, I will pray. Of course, what's going to end up happening is he is going to be cast into the lion's den. Darius tries to get him out of it, but because of the law, he cannot. He says that Daniel's God would deliver him. So the stone was brought. King went to his palace, spent the night fasting, and no musicians were brought before him. Sleep went from him. Verse 18. When he comes to the den, he cries out with a lamenting voice to Daniel. And the king spoke, saying to Daniel, Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to deliver you from the lions? And then Daniel said to the king, O king, live forever. Can you imagine that? I don't know. Let me look back. He came to the lion's den, and he cried out with a lamenting voice. My question is, I don't know how dark that lion's den was. Do you think Darius saw him first? Or do you think when it says he came and in a lamenting voice, that he was in a lamenting voice, verse 20, that he was expecting, he was not expecting to find Daniel alive. And I just wonder if out of the darkness, all of a sudden the voice came, "O King, live forever." I wonder what the look on Darius's face was. Darius was an old man. Darius, who knew about the living God. And Daniel says, "My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths so that they have not hurt me, because I was found innocent before him. And also, O king, I have done no wrong before you." And the king was exceedingly glad for him, and commanded that they should take Daniel up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no injury was found on him, because he believed in his God. And the king gives another command, and we know what's going to happen to them. Daniel, "I will pray." And the Lord was with him. Appreciate you. Have a good day. Join us tomorrow for another portion of our daily praise.